Listen, communication is the process of exchanging thoughts, feelings, ideas, and information in various means. And for the month of October, we're kicking off a new series titled Holistic Communication, where we are, think of it as considering a whole person and how their communication style shapes how they show up every day. I'm excited to kick off this series. We'll jump in right after the intro. Hey, I'm LinnitaHosten and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Excellence in Everything Live. I'm your podcast host, and part of my work is equipping emerging leaders with the mindset and the skill set to become better communicators at work, at home, and with themselves. And for the month of October, I decided I want to touch on that with themselves part because we don't spend a lot of time, at least in the last few months, we haven't spent a lot of time on that segment of a being. And so I'm kicking off a new series called Holistic Communication One on One. I'm gonna pull up the comments just in case you're watching live, you can let me know. Holistic Communication 101. And it's something that I've been learning for the past year in terms of what it means, how it shows up, how it affects. When I say it, I'm referring to that holistic piece, how it affects us personally and professionally. And these small nuances, if we can have an awareness about them, it truly changes how we show up in the functions and the roles that we have the pleasure of serving in. If you're watching live, go ahead and type in the comments, I am here. Let me know where you're watching from. I would love to know where you're watching from. I monitor the comments throughout the show. So I'm always looking to see if you have questions, ask them. If you have comments, share them. And if you have any powerful takeaways, share those as well. All right, so let's jump into what holistic means. When I first came across the term holistic, I thought it referred to spiritual awakening or sage burning. Like when I thought of the term holistic, I thought of all of those things that I've heard holistic wellness practitioners consider, like Reiki or Reiki. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but things that help a person's, I would say, mindset or for to equip them to be mindful using various practices. When I first heard of the term holistic, that's what came to mind. But after doing some learning about the topic, holistic is simply the whole person, the whole being. Think of it as a totality of a thing. So you can have holistic wellness, you can have holistic learning, you can have holistic communication, which is where we're going to spend the time. And you consider a whole being, they have a mind, you know, how they process their thoughts and feelings, where ideas generate from. They have a body, the state of their physical body, any ailments, any inabilities that they might have, any mobility challenges. Then they have social experiences. So their relationships, their feeling of belonging, as you know, if you are familiar with the psychology theory of Maslow's hierarchy of need, belonging is an essential part of the human experience for you to feel like when you're in an environment, you are accepted. Um, and so we have mentally, I talked about that, physically, socially, that there's that emotional piece too, like the feelings that you have, where they arrive or derive, where they are derived from. The root of those things. And then you also have spiritual too. And when I think of spiritual in this context, I think of the higher meaning a person has when it pertaining to the life that they desire to live and their proximity to those values and their proximity to that purpose or their proximity to um, maybe understanding or having awareness about what that is. And so those concepts make up I would say, a holistic person. So when you add on communication behind holistic, we're talking about how does what you say verbally, how is that impacted by the state of your mind, the state of your body, the state of your spirit, the state of your social maybe experiences or lack thereof, and the state of your emotions. How are they impacted? So for the next few weeks, we'll be peeling back a layer for each of those concepts, each of the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and social. Now, we won't dive into them today, but I'm just curious now that I've given you a framework for where we're going for the month of October. Of the five, which do you feel are areas, when you think about your communication style, which of the five do you feel are, what's the word I'm looking for? Are, um, have the greatest influence in how you show up daily? Is it your physical wellness? Is it your emotional health? Is it your social exposure or lack thereof? Is it your spiritual health? Which of those five do you feel has the greatest impact on how you communicate daily? Now, part of what we'll be talking about will be generating awareness because one of the things I learned traveling this summer to speak at various institutions, there's a disconnect between what I am saying verbally and where those thoughts come from. And I'm basically pulling back the layers and teaching you, you have this thought that is compounded by other layers, like the state of your emotions. And I'm excited to do a little bit of teaching about this because when we have a practice of building the state of our emotions, when we have a practice of nurturing our physical body, when we have the practice of feeding our spirit, those things impact um, how effective we are in communicating at work, at home, with our most intimate relationships with our children, spouses, and also with ourselves. Having that clarity of the state of your being holistically will absolutely affect how you communicate. It also helps you make better decisions. It helps you maybe even scale back, pause, process, reevaluate, reconsider. It's a great companion when showing up in the totality of life. So, I always say when I'm coaching my public speaking clients, you should know you so well. You should study you. You should study your cadence, study your body mechanics, study your vocal variety or lack thereof. It's the same thing when we talk about the state of your well-being. You should know yourself so well that when your emotions are off, when you feel physically off, when you haven't had your social nourishment or your spiritual nourishment, you can attach that to the quality of your communication skills. And I'll give you a real life example of this. So this weekend was my birthday. I turned 35. And so the night before my birthday, I went to the spa with my girlfriends. I didn't get home and relax and into bed until a little after over midnight. I had to travel the next day. Now, I know for me, my body needs a minimum of 7 hours of rest for it to function, for my cognitive state, meaning my ability to be objective, rational, make decisions very unbiasedly, essentially, and make them with a clear, maybe understanding. That's what it means to be objective and rational. I do that well when I'm well rested. I have that awareness about my body. So the next day after I left the spa, I was traveling. And when I got to my destination, I was exhausted. Now, there were a lot of decisions that I had to make, like renting a car, um, picking like where I was going to stay. And I couldn't, I understood that why I was short tempered, why I was moody interacting with people throughout my day. It was because the physical state of my body was not rested. Now, because I know that about myself, in those moments where I have that heightened, maybe lack of patience, I can mentally tell myself, okay, you're a little annoyed because you're sleep deprived. Now, I'm telling you this, and you're like, yeah, duh. But you'd be surprised how many people do not have that level of awareness about themselves. What happens when we don't have that awareness? We we don't have accountability for how our communication style might affect someone else. So sometimes when you are in a heightened state of emotion, whether that be lack of sleep, it could be fatigue, it could be because you're hungry, you'll have less patience. So when you're communicating someone with less patience, you might speak faster. You may have your body language might be communicating that you're annoyed. As a result of that, the person receiving your communication has a response. And when we don't have awareness about how we might be triggering someone else, we say things like, "Oh, what's wrong with them? Oh, they must be having a bad day." Little do we know the awareness about how we're showing up is impacting how they're showing up too. That's a that's an example of how powerful having a holistic understanding of who you are impacts how you show up every day. And that is why I'm going to spend the next month or so breaking that down. So I want to looks like we lost our Facebook stream, but for the sake of time, tell me, of the five, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and socially, which of the five, when you don't have them, which of them mostly impacts how you communicate, whether that's to your coworkers, your children, your spouse. Which of those five, when you don't feel your best emotionally, when you don't feel your best socially, meaning you haven't had girls' time or guy time, or been with your fraternity or sorority, when you don't feel your best spiritually, you have not fed your spirit, whatever that practice looks like, getting you closer in alignment to your values, beliefs, and purpose, and also closely more aligned to whom you've been created by. Which of those practices affects you more? As you're waiting to type that in the comments, I'll share with you the one that affects me the most, affects how I communicate the most, is definitely my emotional well-being. And if you are, and this is actually next week's topic, this is going to be my favorite one of the most, but your emotions are, you are, I always say, like, the mind, I got to think about how to teach this. Oh my goodness. It's so, okay. So let me back up for a second. Your emotions precede your feelings. So you have a physiological response, which happens by way of an emotion, before you can mentally process the why, which is the feeling. So you can have an inward response to something. That's an emotional happening. Sometimes it's your heart is accelerated. Maybe you're excited. You bought a new car and you're signing the paper. You're so excited. Your heart starts pounding. Your palms start sweating. That's a physiological response to the emotion you're experiencing. If your children are getting married, you may have a very similar response. Now, you have the emotion and then you have the feeling. So sometimes when you are aroused up, you can't describe what you're feeling like. I don't know. It's just, and we go to what we commonly experience. I'm overwhelmed, or I'm happy. I'm just so happy. But there's a deeper feeling that you can later identify once you spent time with that emotion. And so emotions are the highest bioregulator of the body, meaning when people say you can die from stress, they're referring to, as a result of having the stress, the emotions that you are experiencing puts a weight on your organs. So it being the highest bioregulator, meaning that your blood pressure essentially can affect your well-being, your ability to your heart rate can affect your well-being. So your emotions, if your emotions are your highest bioregulator, then it would benefit us to learn to regulate our emotions so we are not putting our bodies in strain. Your emotions are a combination of your thoughts, your feelings, beliefs, and they're housed in your subconscious. I'm going way too in the weeds, but I want you to come back next week because based on the state of your emotions is how you communicate. So if you struggle with when you're really frustrated, breaking down words, slowing down when you speak, when you are really excited and you can't quite describe the words there, when you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you can't communicate, part of it is learning to regulate your emotions so that you can communicate more effectively. We see this a lot in parenting. We see this a lot in domestic disputes. We see this a lot in directive leadership styles when someone whom is responsible for a group is not overtly, overly displaying their authority because of the state of their emotions. So the two are very much tied together. And like I said, we won't spend the time today going through each of them, but for the month of October, we will dissect all of them: the state of your emotions, the state of your mind, the state of your body, your spirit, and then your social interactions as well, how that affects how you communicate. I have so many stories about how each of these uh, affect me, and I will be sharing them each week. And I invite you, if you have some, to share them as well. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with this story. One of my clients is a foster care agency. And I remember doing a training for a group of foster care parents. And one of the moms was expressing that, you know, when I pick them up from school, I haven't even had a chance to decompress from my day. Then they jump in the car and they have either a lot of energy or a lot of attitude. I am thinking about everything that happened that day, everything that I didn't get a chance to do because I rushed to go and pick them up. I'm also thinking about everything that I have to do when we get home and the things that they have not done to aid that in happening. And she literally said this: I don't have time to be thinking consciously or intentionally. All I want to do is get home, get what I need to get done, get them into bed so I can go to bed. So, what advice do you have for me? I remember her saying that because I'm pretty sure a lot of parents feel that way. And what I expressed to her, and this is a principle of holistic communication, which is having the awareness about your state and how it affects those who you're communicating with. First part is awareness. What I expressed to her was when your children get in the car and they are sometimes dumping, expressing, maybe looking for something from you, why don't you just tell them your state and give them a time where you can come back and finish that conversation? So an example of that might be if John jumps in the car and John is dumping about his whole day and asks, what do you think about this? Because I don't think that this is right. And you don't have the emotional capacity or the mental capacity to even hear John out. What I would tell John is, babe, I I don't have the energy right now. But I want to have the energy because what you shared to me, I really want to talk through. I just can't even think right now. Let's get home, get settled, and we'll revisit it before you go to bed. This is establishing a boundary, one for you, that your wellness and well-being matters. Because when we allow people to just dump on top of us what we're already experiencing, we're telling ourselves, you don't matter. So that's one, establishing a boundary for you as the recipient of communication. Two is generating awareness to the other person, like, actually, both of us should be ready to have the conversation. It should be equally like we both desire to talk. You're teaching that principle to your children. And then that third piece is delaying, like not having an instant need, expecting an instant need to be filled. So kind of delaying that communication. But the thing is, we got to come back and have it. So once you've decompressed, everybody's eating in the bed, and you say, John, come here. Remember, you were telling me about something earlier. Tell it to me again. You're going to feel better about it. You're going to have your word choice when you talk with John. You're going to be more intentional because cognitively, you're going to be more present. And the other piece is John's going to get the fullness of you, not the half version of you due to being overwhelmed, dumped on, running out of time, low energy. So that's an example of the power of holistic communication, having an awareness about the state of your emotions and how not just your emotions, but your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your spiritual, how all those things show up in how you communicate. Now that I've generated awareness about it, I cannot wait for the next few weeks as we dissect the topic of holistic communication in those 5 areas. Drop in the comments. Let me know which of the 5 are you most intrigued to learn more about. Learn how you can practice it, 1, how it shows up in your daily life, 2, and then also how you can teach others that you may lead to integrate that practice. That's the whole goal. Before I let you go, I want to remind you there are 3 ways we can work together. You can bring me in to speak. If you have an organization, you're leading a leadership initiative, I would love to be a part of that. Second is you can hire me to coach you. I do coach in various areas, and I am a holistic coach, hence where all of this content is coming from. Also, if you are interested in developing your public speaking skills, mastering conflict communication, just different kinds of areas. A lot of people who desire coaching in public speaking, they're desiring it because they are being elevated at work and are being placed in front of a lot of people. And now they are prepared to expand their verbal communication skills. That's usually who comes for public speaking coaching. And then lastly, you want to partner on an initiative or program that you have within your organization. And maybe you want to build out the infrastructure, the content. Maybe you have the content, but you don't have the facilitator. It just depends on what it is. Those are the various ways that we can connect to serve you. So that is our topic for tonight. Holistic communication 101. Holistic is the totality of a person. It's their whole being. And when you add communication on the back of it, how their whole being is communicating. So for the month of August, that is what we're going to be spending our time talking about and connecting. If you don't have any questions, and I do not see them in the comments now, I have been experiencing some areas where I don't see comments from various platforms because we are live streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Sometimes I don't see all of them. So if I did not respond or pull you up, I'm not ignoring you. I do not see it on my end, but I promise I will go back and reply before the evening is out. I appreciate you and thank you for hanging with a girl. Excited that you'll be joining me for Holistic Communications, the monthly series. And I look forward to helping you generate awareness about how your holistic communication is showing up in your life, personally, professionally, and interpersonally as well. I love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. I'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.